Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Kimberly Tomchek Carlson, and I'm pleased to serve as your Minister of Religious Education. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you are carrying with you today and all that your heart longs to set down. We'd like to pay a special welcome to our guests joining us today. If you are new here, if you are a guest, please share your name and where you are from in our chat. I welcome you to our worship service by inviting you to join me in a unison affirmation of our mission. Please repeat after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Let's return now to our beloved sanctuary for the lighting of our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith.
Good morning. I'm Laurel Brooks, and I'm pleased to be your worship associate today. Early experiences have a lifelong impact on children's brains, for better or worse. Religious training and practice are built on seductive, age-old rituals to which a child's tender sensibilities are especially susceptible. I carry my childhood experience of the Church's teachings in my neural system, sometimes embracing them, sometimes resisting them. I was raised Episcopalian. I attended the part of the church service deemed appropriate for children. I learned the creeds and I received the blessings. When I was 13, I attended confirmation classes and successfully recited various parts of the prayer book which were required to persuade the bishop that I was ready to receive communion. The ritual in that beautiful church, the light through the glorious storytelling windows, the sumptuous vestments of our priest and our bishop, and the confirmation dress and veil that I wore, all conspired to shape what was expected to be a transformative event. My mother rarely attended church, appearing only at high holidays. When she did attend, she sat next to me. When my attention wandered, she would reel me in, saying, "Pay attention. Listen to the words." I must have done, at some level, although I can't recall any epiphanies. As I grew into young adulthood and beyond, I gradually fell away from belief and interest in what the church represented. The stories only work if belief comes first, and worldly evidence did not support belief for me. Over the years, I didn't feel a void where the church had been. I did occasionally envy people and congregations whose celebration of their faith involved obvious joy, beautiful music, and a visible love for their community. It was tempting to try it out, but the language of commitment that seemed to come so naturally to members of these communities, in my mouth, felt dishonest. When our daughter was born, we lived in a small town of many churches. We thought that involvement in a church should be a significant part of her education, certainly of her cultural awareness. We chose a congregational church led by a pastor who was very charismatic. He was a gifted public speaker and an ambiguous Christian. He wove into his sermons and practices wide-ranging teachings of belief and myth and intellectual disciplines drawn from religious cultures all over the world. His presence drew a diverse congregation that prided itself on nonconformity. When that pastor retired, the congregation was at sea. Where was their ship of faith? After our daughter left for college, our connection to the church weakened, and somewhat ironically, she has found a fulfilling home in the Episcopal Church. I can rejoice in that. When we returned to Milwaukee about 4 years ago, an old friend suggested that we give the Unitarian tradition some thought. Our first impression was that in the panoply of churches, it seemed unexpectedly relevant, socially and politically. That alone was sufficient encouragement to look more deeply. As we continued to attend services, that first impression was reinforced by layers of intention and meaning and fellow feeling. Each time I step into the church, I feel welcome. My seat in the pew is a perfect fit. Though I still have not met everyone in the congregation, through the warmth and character of the people I have come to know, along with the powerful messages of the sermons, the rapturous range of the music, the profound commitment to liberal education for children and adults, the steadfast pursuit of social justice, I feel an irresistible invitation to be part of this beloved community. I believe that the public face of love illuminates the life of this congregation and encourages us to join hands as we walk each other home. I am so grateful to be in your company on this journey.
Ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est, ubi caritas et amor, ubi caritas Deus ibi est.
My 9-year-old, as a kid of 2 ministers, is quite familiar with the idea of a sermon and probably hears way too much about sermon content and church. So, out of curiosity, when I was writing the description of this sermon for our newsletter last month, I was curious. And I asked him, if you were going to give a sermon about something, what would it be? He thought for about 3 seconds and said, I would make it all about love. That's amazing, I exclaimed. I will be giving a sermon about love. What would you say in your sermon about love? He replied, I would just say our church is all about love. That should be enough. Then I told him that a sermon needed to be much longer than that, probably at least 20 minutes. So he thought for a minute and he said, I guess there are 2 choices then. You could talk really slow, or you could just repeat it over and over again. You'll be glad to know I'm not going to talk really slow, but there might be some repetition on how our church is all about love. As a young adult, I began actively seeking a community grounded in love, the walk, not talk the talk kind of love. A community that would center love at its core value and act accordingly. One summer, I thought I found it traveling with the Grateful Dead, a caravan of a community that cared for one another as it moved and danced across the country, but it lacked accountability and consistency. Then I found it with a Native American community. I had befriended some elders volunteering at the local powwow, and for a time, they let me learn with them from their traditions and their heritage. However, I was naive on how and why my race and gender affected those relationships, and I needed to move on. And though I had family and I was in a relationship, I still felt a deep loneliness for community. One of the dimensions of loneliness is called collective loneliness, which is a hunger for a community of people who share your sense of purpose and interests. When have you felt this kind of loneliness in your life, a craving for a community? Now, I'm not just talking about solitude. Solitude is being alone. And I'm not just talking about isolation, though isolation can cause loneliness. Loneliness can happen in a crowded room or when you're isolated and alone. According to Dr. Vitek Murthy, the 19th Surgeon General of the United States, loneliness is the subjective feeling that you are lacking the social connections you need. He emphasizes that loneliness is a near universal condition that we all experience, and that having human relationships is essential to our well-being as food and water. We need human relationships to survive. It is only that loneliness carries with it a stigma of shame and vulnerability, and so it is too often unexpressed or remedied because of our fear of being unlovable. We have all felt loneliness, but chances are most of us in those moments have not shared our need with one another, and too many times are left longing for human connection. In this book, his book, Together, The Healing Power of Human Connection in a Sometimes Lonely World, Dr. Murthy goes on to highlight new research that offers insights on how loneliness is connected to our physical and emotional health. Dr. Julianne Holy-Lungstad, who has her PhD in health and social psychology, asks the profound question in her work: do social relationships reduce our risk of dying early? Her research involved over 300,000 participants from around the world and concluded that people with strong social relationships are 50% less likely to die prematurely. Being lonely, it's hard on us, body and soul. Community has the power to be a kind of salvation. Written before the pandemic, Dr. Murthy's book also reveals that loneliness is worldwide and a root cause and contributor to many of the epidemics sweeping the world today, from alcohol and drug addiction to violence to depression and anxiety. Loneliness, Dr. Murthy believes, is affecting not only our health, but also how our children experience school, how our elders receive care, how we perform in the workplace, and the sense of division and polarization in our society. The isolation of the pandemic only heightened our need for one another, yet we had less available and safe solutions to find connection, further increasing our collective loneliness. There is an Aesop fable about a parent whose children were forever quarreling with one another. In their frustration, the parent told each of them to fetch a bundle of sticks and then handed the bundle to each of the children, instructing them to do their best to break the bundle of sticks. Each child tried and failed. Then the parent untied the bundle and handed each child a stick, again instructing them to do their best to break the sticks. Each child took a stick, and it easily broke. My children, the parent said, you are like these sticks. When you are united to help one another, you are strong and unbreakable. When you are divided, you will be broken as easily as these sticks. We are stronger together. After I left the Native American community that I had been part of, I began searching for another community grounded in love and action. This time it was a school that I began teaching in, a place to collectively practice caring for and educating children. It was a Title I school with many children in need, so I was stretched, and yet I flourished because it was there that I found a deep sense of purpose. I found a place, I found my people, and together we were stronger. Where have you found these places in your life? Was it in your workplace, your family life, a sports team, or perhaps here at church? We seek out these places because at the center of our loneliness, there is still an innate desire to connect, to help one another, to know love, and to create more love together. Then one day, a child, I will call Logan, refused to enter my room. Logan hated my room, the school's art room, the one I had so lovingly shaped, a container for discovering all that art could be for you, colorful and creative and a safe place for expression. Logan was 5, had a sensitive nose, was a minimalist, and his head hurt when he looked up at the paper bird mobile hanging from the ceiling or sat too close to the smelly art sinks. When I met Logan, he was a new kindergartner with Asperger's syndrome. He would not look me in the eye, and he could not function in my art room. Logan made this known by having an epic tantrum in the doorway of my room. It felt like a personal insult. This carefully designed space that I had worked so hard at curating for the 300 students that needed it was being rejected. I was overwhelmed by Logan's response, and I had a choice. There was no extra help for Logan in my classroom. Art class was when the paraprofessional aide got one of their few breaks. And Logan could skip art. No one would question that decision, and ultimately, it was my choice. We have a choice now, too. Church is a place we seek refuge from collective loneliness. We find the community we need here, one that seeks to care for one another and our earth. We bring our children here to experience a place grounded in the value of love. This is the faith, the church that welcomed Laurel when she was seeking a people of purpose and action. Church is not a club or a store. Its strength comes when we put our sticks together in a bundle. Church works as a collective, and that is a radical notion in a capitalistic, consumer-driven society. This church is a well that we drink from but did not dig. And we have a choice to replenish that well with our love. Bell Hooks, author, teacher, and shaper of my pedagogy, says, "We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known, and when we honor the spiritual connections that grow from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. Love is not something we get or give. Love is something that we nurture and grow." In her book, Sisters of Dust, Sisters of Spirit, womanist theologian Karen Baker Fletcher asks that we examine our moral responsibility to creation, beginning with ourselves, then fellow humans, and extending out to all life forms and our planet. Karen tells us that we are a kind of creative force in nature with the power to reveal the divine as love. What moral responsibility did I have to Logan? To myself. I could choose my core value of love, but it was going to be hard. I was already stretched thin for time and resources, and I wanted this child to be all right, but without my extra effort. It began at 10 a.m. in the dark, lights off in the classroom, during morning recess. What was supposed to be prep time for me and my colleague Peggy, the speech therapist. She would bring Logan up to the art room, and we would try and figure out what Logan needed. First, we had to convince him to come in the room willingly. Through delicate negotiations, we found him a seat at the red table, his favorite color, and right in front of my desk. Table mates, posters, painting day protocol, music, learning objectives, and materials were all changed for Logan, but not his seat. At Logan's request, his seat at the red table in our art room would not change for the next 6 years. Also, I stopped wearing perfume, and eventually, Logan stopped saying no to art. The reshaping of my art room to match Logan's needs demonstrated that we cherished him, found him valuable, and that we would rise to the challenge. Not just talk the talk, we would move forward together in a practice of love. It is time once again to find our way back to one another, remembering that it has never been easy. Communal love has always been a challenge. Being together is often uncomfortable, asks us to stretch in unexpected ways, pushes us to try things that we might have avoided on our own. But we have evolved to participate in community. We evolve in community, forging lasting bonds with others, helping one another, and sharing life experiences. We are simply better together. In the 6 years that Logan was in my room, many modifications were made, and Logan began to excel at figuring out how to make art that meant something to him. Logan had a quick sense of humor, and it became his habit to negotiate each and every art lesson relentlessly. It was a challenging and friendly game of consensus every time. Then when Logan was in 5th grade, I taught a lesson correlated with the goals of the 5th grade language class about idioms. And each student was asked to choose and then illustrate an idiom expressing the meaning of the idiom literally and metaphorically. This lesson was a lot of fun. Hilarious drawings, cat got your tongue, cold feet, being all ears. In typical fashion, Logan requested to make up his own idiom and then illustrate his own idiom. So I compromised. This is the idiom he wrote. Love weird animals. You just gotta love them the way they are. Then he diligently worked on a piece of art in a way he had never done before, meticulously illustrating a group of animal oddities that had mixed up and additional parts. When he proudly presented it to me, beaming, knowing it was his elementary school art masterpiece, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. This was the deep wisdom that Logan had been teaching me all along. My experience with Logan reinforced in me the need to trust my core value of love and to be expansive, to practice my universalist belief that every one of us is worthy of love without expectations or exceptions. The universalism legacy is the belief that we are all saved in love. Love asks us to do hard things. And I see love happening here in our church classrooms too. Since March this year, almost every Sunday this summer, we have witnessed a group of 11 or so young people leave our sanctuary and go downstairs for their OWL classes. OWL is our whole lives, and it is our life-saving, comprehensive sexual education program. It has been a grueling summer schedule, cramming in a year's worth of vital content into 6 months, wearing masks in the church basement, discussing some of the most uncomfortable parts of being human. Those people, those good people we call OWL facilitators, gave up their summer to this cause. They trusted in their innate compulsion to help, to nurture love, knowing that their investment in these young people will expand the love we need in the world, knowing that their investment would pay off. And the parents of those young people have risen to the challenge too, called for their love and their responsibility to their children, knowing that the extra effort is a worthy investment, trusting that they are not alone in loving the weird animals that are children, trusting in each of us in this church to care, to lean in, and to be better together. You have a chance to have your life changed by weird animals. You are here and you are dedicated to love, so you are qualified. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to know anything about kids. We have a hands-on, non-passive, embodied first principle experience every Sunday this fall during a first service downstairs. This is spiritual faith formation for adults too, because loving our children changes you. And as your minister of religious education, I'm telling you, our families need you. Our children need you. And when you show up, you are going to be loved in the basement of this church. It is time to lean into our church if we want more welcome, if we hope to forge a world with less loneliness and more love. Bell Hooks says, "A generous heart is always open, always ready to receive our going and coming. In the midst of such a love, we need never fear abandonment." This is the most precious gift true love offers, the experience of knowing we always belong. The word religion means that which binds us together, the values that bind us together. Unitarian Universalists claim love as our theological core, uniting us in our diversity, challenging us to grow our own humanity, calling us to put our sticks together and be bound by love. That love that saves us, that love that makes us stronger. May it be so, and blessed be. I leave you with closing words by Morrie Schwartz, as written in the book Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. So many people walk around with a meaningless life. They seem half asleep, even when they're busy doing things they think are important. This is because they are chasing the wrong things. The way you get meaning into your life is to devote yourself to loving others. Devote yourself to your community around you, and devote yourself to creating something that gives you purpose and meaning.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven Heaven knows how we